one that can see.
Where there's thunder, there's lightning. John Nada. First, let me say I've noticed there's been quite a bit of traffic coming from Germany. So for the German fans, I say Vigets. And of course, to all the other people that listen and comment and support the channel, I certainly appreciate your input as well. I think that there comes a point in time in every channel where you kind of have to make a clear mission statement about what the channel is about. And so today's video will be about the MGTOW stages, the metamorphosis, if you will. Because I think there's this misunderstanding amongst MGTOW, but particularly people in general. And, you know, I can't help but think of the story of Gregor Samsa's Metamorphosis, where in that particular case, that was a negative metamorphosis. But there is this idea that I have carried for quite a bit of time, and that is the idea of change and the level of difficulty that there is to make a legitimate and long-lasting change. And of course, you have the whole nature versus nurture argument and all that. It's really kind of irrelevant and moot when you just kind of think about a person is where they are at, and it's really irrelevant whether it's by nature or nurture or a little bit of both. The question becomes, is change possible? And at what cost and at what level of difficulty am I going to have to operate in order to make that change? And I think MGTOW for some may not mean change. MGTOW for some may mean continuing on the way that they have continued. But undoubtedly, for many, MGTOW is a change. MGTOW is a fork in the road. Hence the symbol of MGTOW itself, the veering off from the straight line off onto one's own destiny. And so within that, we have those stages. A metamorphosis takes place. And so, like has been mentioned before, many people get lost in the red pill rage. You know, some people initially they accept the tenets of MGTOW, they take the red pill, so to speak, but they never quite get out of the anger stage. There is no time limit on the anger stage, by the way. There is no month, year, whatever. For everybody, it's different. I mean, for everybody, they're going to have different levels of dealing with things and coming to terms with things. And so a lot of times, it's unrealistic to think that the MGTOW is going to change overnight. That once they take the red pill, once they become MGTOW, they never have faults, they never have failures, they never go back to the old ways of thinking. It's a constant wrestling with the flesh, a wrestling with the old man, so to speak, as Paul would put it. It's unrealistic to think that the MGTOW immediately becomes the sublime or enlightened one, because Siddhartha Gautama, the Buddha, did not become awake overnight. Jesus did not become the Christ in one day. And the more that I look at relationships and dating and the human dynamics between men and women, the more that I understand that there are many components that mirror addiction to anything else, such as controlled substances, alcohol, whatever the case may be. These breakups, relationships, blue pill way of thinking, all of that has been embedded in the mind of many of us from day one. And so it's unrealistic to think that we just take the red pill and immediately there's just this change, this road to Damascus experience. For many of us, it's going to be a process. It's going to be stages that we go through, and with each progression, we make it to the next stage. But it is an addiction, I think, in a real sense. It's hard to get that out of one's mind when from day one they have been sold this bill of goods, have been fed this pack of lies, and now there has to be almost a rewiring of the mind, a rewiring of the world around them. And so one of the things that I've looked at here recently is the process of people overcoming things like drug addictions or alcohol addictions or whatever the case may be. The processes there are very similar processes when it comes to overcoming relationships and the damages and things that have been done from those. Because remember, many of us that have been in these relationships, we don't operate in a vacuum. Many of us have come from relationships where there was mental abuse, possibly physical abuse, mental manipulation, emotional manipulation. And we're coming from a culture as a whole that does not concern itself with our needs, our desires, our wants, our well-being, that does not concern itself with us unless it is in the sense of what we can do for it, what we can produce for it, and then tosses us away as a disposable commodity. So we're already in a hostile environment in that sense. So even after taking the red pill, we're still immersed in a society like that. We're still being bombarded with all of those images. Even if you turn the television off, even if you get away from media, it's still in the workplace. And so that brings me to, criticism. Like I said, Everest was not Everest was not climbed in a day. It was whittled away at little by little. Criticism, though, a lot of people cannot handle criticism. A lot of people do not see the benefit of criticism. Criticism is good. And with criticism comes the accountability. And this channel, first and foremost, John Nada is not selling anybody anything. What I'm doing here is a midrash, if you will. I'm coming here as with ideas, with experiences, with stories, and I'm sharing them with the audience here. And they're sharing with me their ideas and experiences and stories. And we're bouncing ideas back and forth off of each other, trying to make sense of things. I'm not a leader of anything. I'm not trying to, I don't wish to rule or be dictator over anyone. I'm simply trying to help others as I've been helped and hoping that we can help each other. And that's the mission of this channel. The channel, first of all, I will never ask anybody for money. The Patreon and all that, I have no interest in that. This channel is not about money. This channel is not about subscriptions. If I have 50 people that listen, if I have 50,000 people that listen, makes no difference to me. Because the mission of this channel is that if I've helped one person, that mission is accomplished. And several people have stated to me, through the comments and everything else, that these videos have been beneficial, and these videos have helped them, maybe given them a new perspective, or helped them look at things in a different way, or it helped them in realizing that there were others out there that thought the same way and felt the same way about things. But that is the mission of the channel. And in that, I kind of have recently gotten back into self-help in the sense of, self-development. I think I've talked about it before, but some goals that in the past I've really wanted to accomplish over a long period of time, and I make a lot of progress on, and I almost get to the precipice of breaking through to the other side, and then something happens. So one of those, of course, is the weight loss goal, the weightlifting goal, the fitness goal. There's all kinds of benefits in that, and we can talk about that in another video. But that whole mind-body connection, mind-body-spirit connection. Bruce Lee, in an interview, he kind of talked about the Tao. And if you've never read the Tao Te Ching, I encourage you to do so. And we have talked about the Tao of MGTOW to some extent, but I would like to do a deeper, more in-depth view of what I mean by that. But Bruce Lee said running water never goes stale, so you got to keep flowing. And I think that's been a lot of the issue with myself. I think that's been a lot of the issue with others, friends of mine, and then just people that I meet along the way. We get to a point, we accomplish a goal, and then we stop growing. Growth is important. Growth is the lifeblood. And we've got to be like that running water, never stagnating. Another word that came to mind was evolving, evolution, evolve. How can I better myself? This whole self-development idea. I've made it to this mountaintop, but there's another higher mountaintop for me to climb. So the idea of growth, the idea of evolving, the idea of developing yourself, trying to be the best in mind, body, and spirit that you can be, not to impress anybody, not to do anything other than just do it for yourself. Do it for your own personal development. Do it for your own growth. Do it for your own spirituality, or whatever the case may be. That being said, I spoke with my friend, and I hate calling him my friend, so I'll just give him a pseudonym. We'll just say his name's Jay. Jay calls me up the other day, tells me he went on this date with this girl that he met off one of the websites, and the way that he was describing the date and how everything went, and everything was so great, and it was one of the easiest, best first dates he had ever had. And in all honesty, he sounded a lot like a woman in describing, how great everything was and how it seemed like she was really into him and everything else. In my mind, I knew that it wouldn't be long before I got the call that she flaked on him or she ghosted on him or whatever the case may be. And yesterday I get a text, "Hey man, can you talk?" And I knew immediately what it was. And so we called him up or whatever. And no doubt the girl had lost interest. And he couldn't figure it out. He couldn't understand it. I think he's slowly seeing the pattern, but I point that out just because it amazes me how I already knew what the conversation was going to be about, and how when he told me initially about things, I knew exactly what was going to happen. And you begin to see the patterns, and I think he's beginning to see the patterns himself. There's two other observations that have come up in the past week or two. That of I've had a lot of women in the past, you go out on dates or whatever, or you end up dating them, and they love to tell you how much money they make, as if that's like going to be some sort of thing with the package deal of, well, if you date me, I make all this money. Of course, we all know that she's not going to spend any of it on you, or really even on herself. If you end up in a relationship, you're still going to be responsible primarily for keeping her up financially. And I had one girl that I had dated. I was just talking about how absurd it is, the amount of money people spend on weddings, and how it would just be better to either put the money in savings or save it up for a honeymoon or something more practical than that. But their whole view on it was that they owned a house, and so they deserved a big and lavish wedding because the house, they would have a house already, and so that the house kind of came as a package deal. But yet they stated they wanted to have an additional house as well. And then I guess the kind of funny thing about all that is that they no longer live in their own house. They have effectively been removed from their own house. And there's really no need to go into the story of why that happened or whatever, but they effectively removed themselves from their own home. And then, but this was supposed to be some kind of like asset. But even if that wasn't the case, let's say you married the girl, she already has the house and everything. Whether it was your house or her house, she's getting it in the divorce. And then there was the other observation, of course we talk about the 80-20 thing, but a lot of guys lack experience with women, period. They have no experience whatsoever, no dating experience, very little sexual experience, if any. And that just pretty much cements and solidifies the whole 80-20 rule, when really I think it's more like It's not so much the top 20%, but maybe the top 10 or 5%. But I say all this to say, I feel like we're all growing. I feel like we're all evolving. I feel like we're all going through a metamorphosis, a change. And it's not going to be overnight. And there will be struggles with the past ideas and ideologies. But we should encourage one another and also to an extent criticize one another. But never forget that you're on your own path and you're walking your own way. And it's not really important what anyone else says. The outside voices really have no bearing when it's the inside voices that really are of value. If we have no enemy within, the enemy outside can do us no harm. And that being said, not only is the point of the channel, I feel like, to be a beacon of light and to help, but I'd also like to, not only discuss the relationship aspects of life, but discuss the self-development aspects of life as well, and to try to move in a, we can talk about the negative things all day long, but at some point it is on us to move forward and to get past a lot of these issues. Thanks for the time. Thanks for the consideration. This has been the Days of Thunder, and as always, you're free to do as you're told.